Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Peter Darrell, and I was given the very first edition of Map for Life when it came out in Christmas 1999. It wasn't called Map for Life in those days. It was simply called Journal 2000, Your History in the Making. And it was a Christmas long weekend of the millennium. And we went away to the Kruger Park, and I sat down with my Map for Life and I worked through the program. And Map for Life changed my life. And that was way back in the beginning of 2000. And I've been a dedicated follower, a user, and a global ambassador for Map for Life because of what it did to me and what I've seen it do to other people. I feel I hardly need to be introduced in the Map for Life circles because of my involvement. But tonight I've been asked to speak, and I've chosen my topic as Mindset 2022. I know we're well into the month of January, so it's a little too late for me to say Happy New Year to you and best wishes for 2022. But I was sitting in church on Sunday and I heard a wonderful sermon which inspired me. It caused me to stop and think about my mindset. And I'd just like to share some of the ideas that I got on Sunday with you, plus a couple of others, and share what we're doing at the Map Cafe in Sandton, which has now become a global group. But on Sunday, we heard all about Elijah, and we heard about how Elijah and King Ahab struck a deal where it was a case of Elijah went out to prove who had the most powerful God, him or the Baal prophets. And the challenge was to create a sacrifice. And it was a case of the 400 prophets went out first and they did their thing. And they were calling on their gods to provide the flames and the fire. And at the end of the day, nothing happened. And then Elijah's turn came. And not only did he set up his altar, but he also poured water on it, and then he poured more water on it, and then he prayed to his God, and fire came down, and they proved to the followers who was the most powerful. And the next thing, the 400 Baal prophets were put to death, and there was Elijah in almost his greatest moment, and the case of almost a bigger victory than maybe David and Goliath. And it was at his peak. But King Ahab got back to his wife Jezebel and told her what had happened. And she was furious, and there was no way that this little upstart of a prophet was going to kill all of her prophets. And she vowed that within the next 24 hours, Elijah would be killed. And Elijah ran away from that and rushed out into the desert, and he wound up sitting under a tree where he cried to God to say, "My time has come. I've done enough, and I'm ready for death." And God said, "No, it hasn't," and fortified him for the journey. And the next week, Elijah is now in this cave. And it's a case of from this cave, God called him out. And I just thought, as I heard about it, thought of him sitting in the cave, and I thought, is this not where we have been? We've been through this. We've been through this lockdown. We've been in this predicament where it's almost being trapped in a cave, and so it was a similar situation. And I'm saying we've now been called to come out. Sitting where we have been, it's like becoming a prisoner almost. And I think certainly being in a cave like Elijah was, one's inclined to lose one's perspective. And I've seen it as I've spoken to guys around me. And I wound up on Saturday talking to a fellow runner, and he was talking about how for the last 2 years he hasn't bought any new clothes, and he's just been quite content to live in a t-shirt and shorts and maybe tracksuit pants, and thinks that's okay. And I think, a lot of us have wound up doing things like that. We've paid less attention to our appearance. From a guy's point of view, we don't have to shave every day, and so it goes on. But I think when we start doing those things and we get into sloppy habits, we wind up with sloppy thinking. And then when we get sloppy thinking, we start getting sloppy results. And I just felt that from a personal point, when I looked at my own performance over this period, I found that maybe I wasn't challenging myself as I did in the past. I was certainly going through the motions. I'd stuck to my daily regime. I was doing my daily habits, but the passion wasn't there. One of the rules that I live by is that each morning I've got to get up and light the campfire. And for me, it's going through that routine to set the tone of the day. But as I thought about this, and I thought about being in the cave, I realized that maybe all I was doing was just lighting the fire, just enough to see me through a day in the cave, but not a day where I was tackling massive things. And it was a case of as I thought about these things, I was just sort of thinking about my discussion with Glenn this morning, where we spoke about purpose, and the MAP theme for the year is pursue your purpose. But as Glenn pointed out this morning, and I said I'm going to quote him tonight, purpose has a Siamese twin, and that's passion. And I think we need passion. And I think sitting in that cave, we lose out on that passion factor. And I want to urge you to think about your passion factor. Another thing about being in that cave is that we separated from our relationships, and which is critical. We need to draw the strength from our relationships. We at Sandton, we talk about that we are the real MAP Cafe, real as in results, encouragement, and accountability, and how we leverage off one another. And I think that's important. And I think it's important to get that accountability factor. And I think it's important to come along to evenings like this, so that we can get that, and we can feed off one another. So my message tonight is come out of that cave and carve out your passion, and I want to hear you pursuing passion. One of the other things that we do at Sandton is that we follow the advice of well-known author John Gordon, who talks about creating one word for the year. And it's a case of some of the words that have come up that folk have chosen are words like focus, so that for 2022, I'm going to be focusing on focus. It may be resilience, it may be perseverance. My one word for 2021 was collaboration. And now for 2022, I've done a Glenn McQuirk. And when I say that I've invented a word, I've actually taken a word which is the title of the book. And the word is Reelinere. And Reelinere is the story of Farah Gray, who was born on the wrong side of the tracks in South Chicago and raised in a single parent home. Statistically, at the age of 19, he should either have been dead or in prison. Instead, he'd gone from public assistance, which was even lower than living on the dole, to be a millionaire by the age of 71. And this, by the age of 11. And this is his story, and he shares it to inspire other people to follow. He talks about how where they lived frequently had no running water or toilets, and the toilets were constantly jammed, and it seemed as if the cockroaches had signed a long-term lease. And as he looked around the neighborhood, he saw what was missing, and it was a shortage of hope that one day things would be better. And I think as we look around this world today, and we look at the haves and the have-nots, we see that hope is missing. I see it particularly here in Joburg, traveling on the motorway, where you go past Alexander, and you look at the slums, and you look across to Sandton City in the distance, and it's a case of hope is missing there, and that's what we need to do. Farah says in his book, true success isn't so much about being talent as it is about what you do with the talent. It's not about the size of the house, the make of the car. It's about how we recognize and actualize our unique gifts. That was what will take you to the next level of achievement and abundance. A Reelinere is someone who pursues his passion with authenticity, sincerity, and honesty. And I believe that in Map for Life, we have a tool, which is a way that we can help others and lead them to keep hope alive. And that's my prayer, that each one of you will go out and keep hope alive. Thank you for listening.
Hi, good evening. Just a very quick message to you. We're just having a little bit of an issue with the sound, the volume on Terence's mic. and I'm sure that he'll be solving that in a moment. So let's switch back to Terence, your host for this evening's discussion. Over to you, Terence.
My apologies, and thanks once again, Peter, for that wonderful message. My name is Terence Ogle. Good evening, everyone. My name is Terence Ogle, and I come to you from Johannesburg, South Africa. Peter has just given us a very informative talk. I'll be facilitating, hosting a panel of individuals from connected to Map for Life. And we'll be discussing what Peter has said. We'll be dissecting it. We'll be getting into a little more depth there. So welcome. Please participate in the discussions via the chats. Ask questions if you will, while I then will introduce the panel right now to you. Okay, there we have our panel. And I'm going to start with, if I can ask Amelia, and then Joseph, and then Norman, just to introduce yourselves quickly before we dive into the discussion.
Hi, Terence. Okay, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I have been using Map for Life as a tool since 2013, when friends of mine gave me the book as a gift when I started my own business. At that time, it was a map for business that was published, and I absolutely loved it. Over the last couple of years, I have continuously used this tool, and I always find that it's extremely valuable. I love sharing it with other individuals, and I love seeing the difference that it makes to people's lives when they just take control and start planning their lives and taking control and doing what they want to do.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Amelia. Thanks for that. Joseph, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yes, I am a Map for Life associate. I've been involved with Map for Life when it started off early in 2009. I left and it was quiet over the years, and then recently picked up again and got connected. It has meant a lot to me, helped me to share my life and impart into other tools that guide them into their day, find their purpose, and live that. Very excited tonight to be part of.
Excellent, Joseph. Thank you for that. Norman.
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Norman Siboneko, based in Gaborone, right here in Botswana. It's been a great journey with Map for Life, I think from around about 2013 or so. And, the greatest takeaway for me is when it ignited my purpose and helped me define what the true meaning of life is. And once I locked into that, there is no way I could sit. You just bubble with energy, you bubble with joy. And I've begun since then impacting other lives here in Botswana on a continued basis. And it's really now a part of my life. And I look forward to tonight's discussion as we look at how mindsets come into play in our journey of life. Thank you.
Excellent, Norman. Thank you very much. I love the descriptors you use, the ignited and imparting, and it's all positive stuff, which takes me to Peter's talk. Peter used an analogy. Well, he used the biblical story of Elijah in the cave, and I'm not going to go through that, but I want us to, for the next minute or so, to focus on the analogy of the cave, right? And he rightly mentions that he believes in the past 2 years or so, ever since this pandemic, and when he says we, I guess he's meaning generally, the world has retreated into caves. Can I ask that the panel just share their experiences? Have you had that feeling as an individual, and have you had that feeling of the rest of the world and the people around you, that we've actually retreated into this dark cave, that that Peter mentions in the story of Elijah. And I'm going to start with you, Norman, if you don't mind.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, really, I mean, the experience of the whole pandemic brought about a change, and the greatest experience that comes out of change is the fact that it's uncomfortable. It's taking you out of your comfort, and as a result of that, if one finds themselves in a place where, from a mind point of view, they're not ready and they're not used to change, and they don't have that level of agility to kind of pivot and say, look, I'm adjusting myself and getting into this. You naturally then get locked into a place where you feel boxed in and you're controlled, and you panic and you don't even know how to use your time. Fortunately for me, because of family, there were a couple of books, took time to even have more one-on-one, more time with the children, borrowed a little bit from the principles that we learned from Map for Life on how you can utilize your time effectively and adjusting that calendar and that routine, because you could no longer go out now and you're stuck at home. So that is really true that you can get caved in, but you get caved in and boxed in more if you're not ready and are not agile enough to kind of hop and if you don't have anything that guides you on how to go about your life, you get stuck.
Okay, thanks for that, Norman. So you're talking about being prepared, having the tools to actually go through that whole cave experience. Joseph, what has your experience been with regard to the sort of cave analogy? Have you found that you were also in the cave, and how did you cope?
Yeah, I think it's a very good time for, especially or found yourself in a situation where there was not much that you could look at or go into. And then on the other side, if you were challenged with sickness or disease or whatever, it would put you in a situation of being depressed and downhearted and feeling that there was no future actually ahead of you. And this has caused a lot of pain and damage to persons, I think, in a great sense, because exposed to this kind of world, put your mind in the situation where you find yourself in and move beyond this. And this is where mindsets comes in, because mindsets usually come and are built in because of fear that comes upon you. Now, if you are in a cave situation where there isn't much for you to do and you find yourself destitute, not answers to looking path at present, and that has been detrimental to a lot of people and put them in a place where it was not possible to in their destiny or to have a passion, even have passion, because they've lost their passion, they've lost their and this is also position. You are frustrated and you up into a place where you're frustration means that I beyond that I find myself the best where I found myself in, beyond that, find a way out of this. And this is dangerous when you're there, because what you do is you tend to sit down and not think and allow your mind to be expanded. And I believe this is where Map for Life plays a major role in our lives, is that it helps us first of all, we all know the 5 steps of Map for Life. At that point, I believe in the cave, you should once again go back to the basic and establish your position. Where do I find myself, and where am I at this moment? Why am I finding myself in this position? As Peter said, you start recapping and you see into situations, you find yourself that you sort of going into a capping because the I believe that your destination, and what he was saying, if I understood him correctly, that once he was recapping, you could see, okay, maybe listening to the message, where I am, I'm in this cave situation. What do I do? Do I go into a depressed situation, or do I recap and get my imagination up and start reselecting what I have to do and to move beyond where I am? So I believe that's what we need to do, and I'm encouraged.
Excellent. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. Thanks for that. I think the whole thing of reassessing where you are and using the Map for Life methodology to actually achieve that is an excellent coping mechanism. So rather than as Peter was saying, falling into a mindset of depression, of hopelessness and helplessness, the mindset we have is a positive one, and that comes through just reassessing where we are, why are we there, asking the right questions. Amelia, how did you cope in the cave?
Terence, it was a very strange experience. In hindsight, looking back, when the pandemic just hit, just before we went into full lockdown, I was a rat in the corporate rat race, and I was a very busy rat in the corporate rat race. And I remember one day, in one of my communications with the employees at the time, I said to one of the employees, we are all in this storm together. And he looked at me and he said, we are all in the storm together, but we are in different boats. And that always stayed with me, because when the pandemic just hit and I got to stay at home in full lockdown, to me, it was almost a blessing. I loved it. I loved being able to just relax, to just be at home, to work through my library, to sort out my books. I just started at a point, and I had a lot of goals. I had a lot of things that I had to get through. I started at one point in the house and just did everything that I never got to in the past. Once that was done, I think then the cave sort of, I really started experiencing the cave. Number one, because you were not seeing your family members, your loved ones, your friends, and all of that, a person started getting this feeling of being in a cave. And I think that is what made me realize how important, what are the things that is really important in your life. Rushing towards certain things, always being busy, doing a lot of things, but not actually really doing inspirational things or worthwhile things or things that are aligned with your purpose. And I think that was the time when it really dawned on me, the big difference between busy and purposeful life, So I think in hindsight, there were different phases. In the beginning, it was great. And then it was that whole traumatic experience and, the worrying about everybody and people who were close to you that fell ill and people who passed away and stuff like that. And then now it almost feel as if things are getting back to normal, although we're very far from being at normal levels. But at least we learned new ways to adapt to it. So I think a lot of good things came from it, a lot of good realizations. Personally, I think a lot of people moved closer together and a lot of people realized what really is important in life for them.
Thanks, Amelia. Thank you very much. Yeah, you referred to the second part, the one you battled with after getting over the fact that you now had time to do stuff. You now needed to get to the stuff that you really needed to get to. But Peter also mentioned the relationships and how important relationships were. And what I hear you saying is that during the second half, you felt that relationship lack or that need for
Yes.
relationship, quite strongly. And I think a lot of people did because, there was a lot of loss of life. There was a lot of separation through lockdown, etc. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Another analogy that Peter used, and I love the campfire analogy that he used, and I think what we've discussed now is that actual lighting of the campfire. By doing the things that we've discussed that we do. How did we cope? With the mindset and getting the things done, getting our priorities right, etc. But what Peter also said was that he felt that all he did was just to light the campfire. Now I'm sure many people are listening to this, and including yourselves, have been on a camp, right? So lighting the campfire is just but one thing, right? There's stuff to be done after the campfire. There's the water to be boiled if you're making coffee or tea, etc., etc. And I think that was an excellent analogy that Peter used around just lighting the campfire and not doing any more than that. Okay, and then Peter spoke also about passion. Okay, and passion and purpose. I want to focus firstly on just passion. And ask the question of the panel: what to you is passion? What is the meaning of passion in your life? You don't have to be specific, but just let's discuss around what does passion feel like? What does doing something passionately feel like? And maybe I want to start with one of our Map for Life colleagues who, when we were discussing this, she said, when I feel the butterflies in my tummy, I know passion is involved. That's a sign that whatever I'm doing passionately. So she described it as an inward feeling, as an inward feeling of, this is really where I should be. This is really where I need to be. This is really where I want to be. This is my happy place, if I can put it that way. Can we share? And maybe Amelia, can I start with you this time? How would you describe being passionate about what you do, or about life, really?
For me, the immediate answer that comes to my mind is, when you are following your passion, or when you are doing something that you are passionate about, you are energized, you never get tired, and you can't stop. You don't feel that you need to take leave or you need to go and rest, because your passion energizes you. So the minute that you can find that thing that you can do all the time, and having to take a rest almost feels to you as if you're going to waste time. It's not like you need to take a rest to re-energize so that you can carry on again. And that, to me, is a very important test of when you're really busy with something you're passionate about, and when you're not busy with something that you're passionate about, or something that you're not passionate about.
Excellent. I love that word, energized. You could make that your word of the year, as Peter suggested, right? Energized. Joe, can we get to you? You want to give us a talk around passion? Is Joe there?
Yes,
Can you hear me? Okay.
I believe that, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Clearly now, Joe.
Can you
yes.
hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can.
Yeah. It's in an is
I think we've lost Joe there. We're battling a bit. Apologies with the sound. Joe seems to be breaking up. Let's fix that offline, and let's get to Norman. Norman, your views on passion.
Yeah, I think I'll define it more from my experience. I mean, we
Sure.
get involved in a number of activities,
Yeah.
and when I compare, I found that whenever I get involved in activities that have to do with adding value to people, sharing something with them that's going to help them grow, I find myself in a space where, like Amelia was saying, it's as if I should not leave. If I leave, even if there are many other important things, they suddenly become less important because of this thing. So there is an element for me where you don't even have to define what it is; you just experience it. And for me, it has a lot to do with the impact that one has on other lives and seeing value being added on the other side. um and I find that is where I'm passionate. I play an instrument. I play the piano, and I find that I spend a lot of time there as well. But when I compare that personal time on the piano vis-a-vis the time when I spend with people and adding value and particularly through the Map for Life process and seeing people get ignited, I find that I'm more in that space and more passionate there than my personal time. So for me as well, it really has a lot to do with, what about others and the value that we add to them.
Excellent. Thanks, Norman. Yeah, I mean, purpose, I think what you're saying as well, if I can summarize, is that pursuing your purpose gets that passion out of you, right? And it's always directed at others. But in actually pursuing your purpose passionately, you yourself get rewarded as well. But that's not the primary aim, if you want to call it that. It's always about others. And yeah, I mean, biblically it says it's better to give than to receive. So the more we give of ourselves, the more we ourselves are fulfilled as well. I want some help here because Peter used an acronym, and I got 3 of the 4 letters. The first one was result, R for result, and he called it REAL, right? The REAL acronym. I got the A, which is accountability, and the L was leverage off one another. Can anybody remember what the E was? It's not important. We can get it at some stage.
I missed that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was concentrating so much on sort of writing it down that but then Peter goes on to the one word for the year, and I think that is a very good idea. In our Map Cafe, what we've done is we've adopted a word for the month to actually focus on. So at the start of every month, we say this is a word, and as a group, we focus on that particular word. Our word for January, for example, is action. So whatever we plan to do, let's act on it. Any ideas and thoughts on a word for the year, or any other way you could implement it? Norman, I'm going to start with you this time.
Yeah. You see, it's always about improvement and growth, and the new things that we want to do to get us to the next level of performance. And in coming up with a word for the year, one always needs to look at it from that point of view. And in my case, it's similar to what was said. For me, my word for the year is really around relationships and the value that comes out of that. And it's also partly coming in, looking at my personality type, being an introvert. And I'm challenging myself to say, look, whilst you still do connect with people and you're more comfortable connecting with people on one-on-one, hey, let's not limit yourself. Let's look at how you can build relationships, even where there are crowds, even where you can, connect with people more. And in that way, I already see myself, growing. I mean, Glenn did mention that, there's a bit more activity on my side, and it's really out of putting yourself out there and focusing on this word. Like today's topic is, it's about mindset. My mind is set on relationships, and it's going to be set on relationships for the entire year until I have built enough, and I keep growing in that regard.
Excellent, Norman. Thank you very much. You mentioned that you're an introvert. You've actually done extremely well ever since I met you. I would have never guessed that you're an introvert. When you perform in circles such as these, well done. And thank you for that input. I also like your twist on mindset. My mind is set on, right? Okay, Joseph, can we have we fixed your sound problems? If we have, let's get to you around.
I think I was off the air.
Just for a while. You're back on. So we're talking about the word for the year that Peter mentioned, and can you share with us what you think about word for the year? And if it's not an intrusion, what is your word for the year, please?
Personally, I agree 100% because I myself work. Being in the ministry has an understanding of what I believe God wants to achieve in people's lives in this year.
Okay.
And to me, it's about family, about structure, about relationships and foundations. And if you're talking about foundations, to me, it's the principles that it's applicable in your life. So we have to look at that and then see how God just brings everything together. And I think there are three things to me that's very important this year, is that to move beyond where we are, we must never forget the purpose and the reason why we are called and why we are in life and what we have to make and the difference that we have to make in people. We must never forget who called us and who purposed us for this time and this season. And then the other thing that is important in building in relationships and in structure and in family is we must always remember the promise that thrilled us to move beyond where we are now. Every person has a promise. Every person has a birth certificate and a death certificate in themselves. If you wake up in the morning and you get out there, you are able to speak death or you can speak life. You can speak a word of positive expression over somebody or into somebody's lives or into a situation, or you can choose to speak death. You also choose when you rise and when you lay down and when you stop. So understanding the power also, the third thing that I need to remember in my life is to understand the power which will enable me to finish my course with joy. And that is important this year. If we do not understand that and have those in place, then it's not going to be such a joyous year. But otherwise, I'm excited about 2022. If you add it together, you get a 6-2-2-2. 6 is presentation in Hebrew. So you're presenting. This is a year of presentation, great things, of great. This is a year of advancement, and where families can build together and relationships can build strong. So I'm very excited about this year. So to me, yes, this is a year of structure, of order, of advancement. Thank you.
Excellent, Joseph. Thank you very much for that. And you've actually gone a bit ahead in terms of what the last question I was going to ask, but I'm not going to ask it now. But thank you very much for your input. I'm going to go to Amelia first and get her views on the one word, and then I'll pose that last question to the panel. Thank you, Joseph.
Very well put, guys. I fully agree with what you said. And I think for me, the one word that I'm focused on a lot is positivity. You know, I think I'm adamant that we must start realizing that life is not happening to us. Life is happening for us. So it is so important that no matter what happens to us, we need to take what happened to us, see the positive side of that, and take that message and move forward with that. Believe that everything that happens to you happens, or not happens to you, but everything that you go through is either something that makes you grow, or something that makes you stronger, or something that gives you skills. Take the lesson from it and move on. It is all about staying positive.
Excellent, Amelia. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, and staying positive has a lot to do, as well as Peter and the rest of the panel have said, with the mindset. You know, we can either have a negative mindset or we can have a positive a mindset. I'd like to end this discussion off. Peter mentioned right at the end of his talk, he made a statement, in fact, that there's a shortage of hope in this world. And I think just from what we've said and the discussion that's come up, there's a lot of hope messages, very positive messages that have come up. If there's one sentence, one or two sentences that you want to share with the rest of the world to give the rest of the world hope, what would that message be? Okay, Norman, I'm going to get to you first again, sir.
All right. No, not a problem. I mean, what the greatest hope that we can have is in a better tomorrow. But the thing about a better tomorrow is, if you do not, you know, like the cliche says, you know, failing to plan is actually planning to fail. If I do not create that plan that enables me to have a visual picture of where my journey is leading to and where my end is moving towards, I will not have hope for a better tomorrow. And oftentimes one can easily get into a point of depression, or a point of feeling helpless, all purely because I have nothing planned, I have nothing written down, I have nothing structured. Whilst we are different, some people would be intuitive and they will act, out of their hearts and know where they're going. You still, in one way or the other, will need to write that down. And it becomes a point of reference when you are down. It gives you a sense of hope on where you're going. And for me, my key message is, a tool such as Map for Life helps structure us and helps structures our lives so that we may be able to have a plan and something that we can hope for.
Excellent. Thank you, Norman. I love the way you put it, the better tomorrow part of it as well. And so how do we get to the better tomorrow? Have a plan. Map for Life structures it and gives us focus. So we're getting from point A to point B. Thank you very much for that. Joseph, briefly, what would your message of hope be to the world that seems to have lost a lot of hope out there?
I would say to them, remember, the wilderness that you find yourself in, and the place of abandonment is the place of change. That's exactly the best place you could be for change. It's as the womb of the morning, says Psalm 110. There's an absolute change. Every morning, it's a new day. This is a new opportunity. And I want to say that those foreordained for greatness have been kept, I believe, for this hour, for this moment, for this year. Maybe guarded, protected, and preserved for this moment, that you could step into your destiny, step into a new beginning. This is the year. This is the best year. There isn't a better time than now for you. So I want to challenge you and just ask you to step out in faith. Once you step out into this new challenge and move in your life, whatever it is, write something down that you would want to achieve this year. Just write what comes into your mind, write it down. And then I want to challenge you and step out and start moving with Map for Life. Get it, start working with it. And at the end of this year, you will be a different person. I promise you. I promise you, just on one point, just take the challenge. This is your moment. Every morning, you have the opportunity to take a new direction in your life. Use it, and you will see where you end. God bless.
Excellent, Joseph. Thank you so much for that encouragement. What comes to mind is that saying that you were created for such a time as this. So the timing is perfect. And then the other thing that comes to mind is one that we've discussed on previous sessions, where it is Peter that said, just do the Nike thing, just do it. Step out there and do it. There's a whole wide world waiting for you to do what you were destined to do. Okay, Amelia, I'm going to leave the last for you and the best.
Terence, what I think I will use is the words that Norman Vincent Peale said. And
Okay.
he said, change your thoughts and change your world. And I think we're pretty much all saying the same thing. So it's all about how you are looking at things, how you are reacting to things, and what you are making things out to be. I want to actually challenge you. The next time you get upset because of that driver that cuts in front of you in the traffic and, not following the road rules, etc., instead of feeling upset and using words that make you more upset, use a word like, how fascinating, or something like that. And you will immediately feel your whole world, you will just feel better. And I think that's the wonderful thing to know. We all have the control and we all have the ability to see things in a more positive way. And we should all do that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amelia. What comes to mind from what you've just said is there's a saying as well that goes, you cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to what happens to you. And that is all about being in control, right? Mindset. Panel, I thank you so much. And I really do believe that the audience out there, whoever listens to this message, will take away a message of hope and will begin to take those steps using a tool such as Map for Life to get them to a much better place, and to use Peter's analogy to get them out of the cave, because we weren't created to stay in darkness. We weren't created to stay in caves. We were created to be out there, to influence the world, to change the world, to have a better tomorrow for everyone. So I really thank you for your contributions. I thank everybody who's listened in and is listening in to this message. I really do believe it's been so useful and so informative. So thank you once again. And yeah, God bless. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.